Well, welcome to the Unstoppable Freedom Podcast. I'm Jimmy Page. Hey, thanks for tuning in today for part 2 of a 2-part series with our great guest, with the patriotic American, Rebecca Lavrenz. She, as you know, has been arrested and charged for her involvement in the events on J6. Obviously, she was a peaceful protester, but she did enter the Capitol, and now she's in the middle of a trial. So you're going to enjoy this second part of this series. This second part, she talks about what happened, the events at the Capitol. She talks about her arrest and now the charges that she's facing. So here we go. Get ready for part 2. Let's go. This original covenant from the original pilgrims that came here on the Mayflower, they said, hey, this is for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. That is the underpinnings of this nation. And how many people do you think actually know that? I would say less than 5% of Americans even know that about our history and how rich it is to know that that was the original intent.
Right. And since then, there's even another one that's even before that. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, of the 1607 covenant. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and that one is even expands it more, even though it's more prior to that. But there were 3 ships that came over, the Susan something, and then I don't remember all the names, Godspeed and Discovery, and were 144 men and boys on those ships, and they landed there on Cape Henry, the outermost part of, it's near Virginia Beach, and they had a cross that they had on their ship, and they set that up, and the first thing they did was to repent and then come before God in a covenant with Him. They made a covenant with Him that said, this country would be for the glory of God, but it would also be a godly country for generations to come until Jesus returned, and that it would give glory to God. It would advance the Christian faith, but it would also not be an evangelist to the people that were on this land, but also evangelists to the world. And that was over 400 years ago. And I feel that's the foundation. That's what our destiny and calling is as a nation, is to be a godly nation. And when the presidents or governments that be say that we are no longer a Christian nation, then they are denying and spitting in the face of God. And God's not okay with that. So He'll raise up people that believe in those covenants so that we can be in agreement with that covenant. When you're in agreement with a covenant with God, God is always faithful to His covenant, but we forsake it. But if we humble ourselves and repent and be restored to that, then God will work in a mighty way. And I think that's what He's doing now.
That's right.
Through many voices.
So yeah, through many voices. And I think those voices are growing. So after you had that moment with God and you prayed specifically, what happened next? Did you enter the Capitol at that point? What happened?
Okay, so that was somewhere between 11:30 and 12. I got back to where I was, and I was standing. There was a gentleman that was right there that had a speaker, and he was broadcasting the speech. So I got to hear better than probably if I was up at the front, at the White House where he was. But then, people were still saying that this, we were singing and, just standing around. There was no chaos, there were people that were trying to rattle the bike racks, but there were people around me saying, stop it. We were saying, stop it. And then they stopped it. And then probably around 2:00 is when all of a sudden I realized those barriers were coming down. And so I said, okay, well, God, you're making a way for us. You're opening doors that no man can shut, shut doors that no man can open. We walked across the plaza, up the steps, and I was on the steps. And I had called my daughter and I said, Jennifer, if those doors open, I really sense that I'm supposed to carry God's presence in that building. And and I just knew if they did that, I felt God would get in, and even though later on looking at it, I realized that was all a trap, I believe. Obviously we know all that, but it's like when the enemy trapped Daniel, they said, well, you're going to be thrown. Well, are you going to back down from the trap, or maybe God's going to use you if you follow that, even the enemy has plans, but God always has another way.
It's amazing the similarities, about the trap, right? So the decree, you're not, don't pray. Anyone that prays is going to be thrown to the lions. And then they trapped him. They waited for him to do it. and then they prosecuted him, and then of course God delivered him. And I think that's the beauty of it. So you're in the deliverance hour. I would say we're getting close to your deliverance. That's what we're after. So you entered the Capitol now with the crowd. Now, at that time, was it rowdy? Was it violent? Or was it just people entering the Capitol?
No, the doors opened and I didn't know right directly in front of me because there were so many people around me, but where I was, there was not any violence that I saw. The doors are open. I didn't see any broken glass or anything. I just felt like I'm going in there because I felt like I had to carry God's presence with me, but that we were there to make our presence heard. We had gone through, I've studied the Constitution with Constitutional Live and Rick's program and all that the year before. And I thought that the normal things that should have been done would have been done by now, but we all know that none of that happened. And so the last final thing is you need to hear the people that you represent, which is we the people. You have that on the back of you, don't you? We the people on your background.
Big time.
And I have it on my little pin here. But we are the people that put you here, and you need to hear us. The First Amendment says we have a right to have our grievances addressed. And so I felt like we need to walk in there. You're going to know that we're out here, whether you're acknowledging it or not. So I walked in, felt God. I was just at the perfect, Kairos or whatever moment in my life that I was here for a specific reason. And I felt like I saw my grandchildren in my mind's eye. I'm not going to let them go down. I felt like I walked right between I stayed within the boundaries. My FBI report shows that I was talking to a police officer. He never told me to leave, didn't say anything of that, and walked right in and started going down a hall, which we thought was toward the Senate chambers, I think, or till where they were meeting, just so they could know that we were there, basically. And then after we were down, not even hardly down the hallway, the guy in front of me turned around and I said, well, why are we leaving? And he said, because the congressmen have already left the building. So there was no sense in us staying. So then we walked out. So it was a total of about 10 minutes. I stayed in there for that long and left and stood outside for a while until it was Mayor Bowser's curfew time. So then we walked back to where
And you saw police officers, and none of the police officers that you saw were concerned or escorting you out or preventing you from entering. In fact, we've seen that everywhere. In fact, things are not what they had first seemed, right? Because we now know that police were escorting literally thousands of people through the Capitol and opening doors. And it doesn't seem congruent with the media narrative, of course. So now you're in the building. Did you have an opportunity to pray?
Well, I feel like when I have Jesus in me, I carry him wherever. So I felt more like his presence, but I wasn't praying out loud. I don't think I said anything out of my mouth. I probably was praying some under my breath, and but I wasn't vocal with anybody. I didn't even talk to anybody in there really, other than the guy that told me, we're leaving. So I didn't really pray out loud or make a declaration. I did that outside, but not inside. Yeah.
Well, now the event, you're leaving the event, and you're unaware at this point of any of the other conflict that's happening around the Capitol. You're not aware of any of that.
Well, I do know that there was some on the other side, because that's where my son and my grandson were, and they were telling me there were things going on. They had just, we had a family text and we were texting a little bit, but I see. But I knew that was kind of going, but I didn't know what else.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then, I'm assuming shortly thereafter you left DC, you came back to your home state of Colorado. Tell us a little bit about what happened after that.
Well, right after I left, and I don't know, this thought keeps coming to mind. I haven't really shared this before, but when I was in the Capitol or somewhere on there, my purse got lost. My purse was lost. Wow. And I thought, oh no. And it was actually my daughter's purse. And I thought, oh no, she's going to really get mad at me that I borrowed her purse without asking, I think.
Oh no.
But anyway, I just said, God, and see, I am very stickler on, if God says something, the word, I'm going to claim it. So it says if a thief is found out, he has to repay sevenfold. So look what's going to happen with our election. But anyway, I said, God, devil, you repay. You're the one that whatever happened, I lost that purse. I looked all over, couldn't find it, but I ended up getting that purse back. Do you believe it? I mean, with all those crowds,
Come on.
yeah, I know. Isn't that awesome? I just prayed, God, bring it back. And on that night, my daughter that was home, she said, Mom, there's somebody on Facebook trying to get a hold of you. And I'm never on Facebook. She said, she has your purse. So we connected. It was another patriot for,
That's amazing.
Go figure, right? And so
right.
that just shows how people really, the people that were good people there, and that I got my purse back. So anyway, so that was a little side note, but I went back to my daughter's room, and after I was there a little bit, my daughter, whose room I was staying in, she says, Mom, she called me. She says, Mom, do you know you could get arrested for going in the Capitol? And I said, no, not really. Could I? I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. It's our house, right? It's the people's house. And so I just told her no. And anyway, the next day or so, I thought, well, if I did something wrong, then God, you need to show me. So I prayed about it. I spent time with God. And I said, God, did I offend you by doing what I did? Am I guilty of something that I should repent of? And it didn't. Right away, God said, no, Rebecca, you were there on assignment for me, and I'm proud of you. And he was basically standing up for what I did. He believed that I did what he wanted me to do. And I believe because, God is a spirit, and he's left us here to do his word or do his will. And he couldn't go in there. He needs a body, and I was his body. And I said, yes. So, okay. So I wasn't guilty. And so that's just carried me the rest of my journey, because I don't care. They've tried to get me to take a plea. I won't take a plea, because if I took a plea, I would be denying what God told me to do. And I will never do that. I obey him first. So
that's amazing. And it was some time before, so you get back to regular life.
Yeah, I got back. Actually, I got back, and then after a week or two, we saw that they were arresting all these people, and I thought, oh my goodness, that couldn't happen in America. We were doing what we called to. You got what you wanted. You got the wrongful president in there, so why do you have to come against us? And then things went along, and I wasn't concerned about it. And then on April 19th, which you probably know is Patriot Day, the shot that heard around the world, I get a knock on my door, and it were a man and a woman. And I thought, well, who's here? I'm in the middle of baking a cake. It was also my son's birthday. Incidentally, the one who also called me and told me I should pray about going to the Capitol. It was his birthday. I was baking a cake, and we were going to get together, I think, that day. And so I go to the door, and there are these two people, and they said, I'm out in the country, so I don't get too many visitors. And they said, we're here with the FBI to investigate your involvement in January 6th. And I thought, okay, so you know what happened? The first thing that came out of my mouth was, I'm in the middle of baking a cake. I have a mess in the house. Can we do this another day? And actually, they said yes. They gave me they gave me their card. And they said, "Well, just call back." So I did.
You are tough. Like, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something. Can you come back?
Yeah, and they said yes. So I thought, I didn't know that, but I guess that was okay. I mean, it's hard sometimes when I think of all the terribleness that people have done, all those other cases. But I don't know what happened, but God was sure on my side that day, and He came over. It was like, He'll just say the words out of your mouth if you let him. Yes.
Wow. Oh yeah. Yeah. So did they come back? Did you?
Well, I said I would call them back, and so they came up. I scheduled a time for them to come out when it was on my time. Right? Yeah. Thomas Jefferson said that when people fear the government, that's tyranny, but when the government fears the people, then that's freedom. And looking back on it now, and I don't think I've ever thought of this until talking to you, but maybe they were afraid of me, because they saw God in me, Yeah. What if they did see God on me?
Yeah. What if you had a couple of big angels?
Exactly.
We're coming back. We'll be coming back later.
We're not coming back. Those two big angels.
Right. That's right.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then they finally ended up, they questioned you, but then did you think that was the end of it, or you felt like it was going to continue? Because eventually you got arrested.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't been arrested yet. So they came out and investigated me the end of April. My son was there because he was being investigated. He and my grandson, for just being there. And so he was there. And then I thought, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't disruptive. I didn't break anything. I wasn't violating anybody or whatever. I felt I was let in. And then didn't hear anything till August probably. And the FBI agent called me on the phone and she told me, well, your son's charges have been dismissed, but you're going to be probably charged with 4 federal misdemeanors. And she said this was all on the phone. And she said you'll be charged with entering and remaining in a restricted building, entering and disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building, entering or disorderly and disruptive conduct in a Capitol building, and then parading and picketing in a restricted building. Those were the 4 misdemeanors. Okay. And so she had called me and she read them all off to me, and I didn't say anything. And then there was nothing on the other. And then she said, well, you should be happy they're not felonies. And I'm thinking to myself, I shouldn't be charged with anything. I don't feel I did anything wrong but stand up for my country and that I love, and that we have a right for that. But so she said, you'll probably go up to Denver and they'll arrest you up there and read you your charges. Well, I thought that would happen soon, but then I never heard anything for almost a year and a half. This, like I said, that was like August of 21. And then December of 2019, I got a call, and it was the FBI again. And they said, you're going to be charged with you're going to be arrested on December 19th. That was 2022. And you'll have to appear up in Denver in the federal court. And they're going to book you and charge you with these 4 misdemeanors that they had told me a year and a half ago.
Wow. Now, so at this point, you go down and they arrest you. Let's talk a little bit about how they treated you. I think that's important to understand. And then let's talk a little bit about the penalties you could be facing. But let's talk first about what happened when they arrested you in that process.
Okay, well, just a little bit before that, I'm very involved with the local Republican Party. That's a grassroots Republican party, a chairwoman in our county. And I've been involved with the Republican women's group there. And the president of the group, when I told her I was a vice president of the group, and she said, Rebecca, that is not right. We need to get some people up there just to support you and pray for you. So she got on a conservative podcast and she put out a word. There's a patriot in our county that needs our support. She's going to be arrested for January 6th and so we're going to call as many people as you can. We're going to carpool up there. We're just going to support Rebecca. Wow. Well, this was the week before my arrest. And on Friday before the Monday that I was going to be arrested, I got a call from the FBI, and they said, we've heard on social media that there may be some protests up there. And I know she was referring to this lady's call to get people to come up there to support me. And she said, and just because of that, we're going to have to be more fluid with this arrest. We're also going to need another FBI agent there. We're going to have to do a lot more because of all this, what was on social media, kind of like blaming me for it all, and trying to intimidate me. So a really wonderful couple that are constitutional Republicans. He was part of the U.S. Border Patrol for 24 years, left that because of all the corruption. And now he and his wife drove me up there. We met up there. I had my son and my other son with his wife and their 3 little ones that I remember seeing when I was in the Capitol. They were there, and with about 30 other patriots who love God and our country. And they stood out there. They prayed for me. And then I got a call from the FBI agent and said, meet us on the corner of whatever 2 streets they wanted me to. So they all followed me over there, and we got there and nobody was there. And once I got there, I get another call, and they said, we asked you to come alone, and if you don't come alone, we'll have to do this another day. And so I said, okay, I don't want to come another day. This is enough. These people have supported me. I'm going to do it today. So I threw my coat to my son, and I said, okay. And I got a little frustrated, and it was cold that day, but I took off my coat and ran, because they don't want you to leave your coat with you. You might not get it back. And so I ran up, marched quite angrily over to the next place. And there were 2 unmarked cars, and they put me in the back seat. I asked for the warrant for my arrest, and they said, and it was 3 months earlier that they arrested me. But I think they waited for 4 days before Christmas to get me arrested, put me in the back seat. And
Wow.
another thing that another way that they're fearing me, they had to have all this protection because they're afraid of me.
Right. Right.
Really?
And when our audience sees you, they're going to laugh because no one is going to see you as a threat, especially not a physical threat. They're going to see you as their neighbor. And
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
it's ridiculous. I mean, and that's what I hope people will wake up and see, that this isn't what the media has portrayed it to be. It's a plan to
Yes.
make us all think that we don't have a voice, and we do have
Yeah.
a voice. And
Yeah. It
so,
is intimidation. It's intimidation.
yeah,
And it's
everything they've done.
silencing, and it makes you think twice before you speak out.
Yeah, and that's what I want to encourage people. Do not ever be afraid. Fear not, for I'm with you. He always is with us. Even the way it looks might scary, but we know that the government is upon God's shoulders, not ours.
Yes.
And not the
So
current stuff.
so then they bring you in, they book you. Did they handcuff you? Did they, what'd they do?
Yeah, they fingerprinted me, which they said they've never had such a hard time fingerprinting anyone in their life, because all my this, I don't know what happened to my fingers. I told them it's probably because I worked so hard all my life.
I was going to say, that's what hard work looks like, right there. That's what that looks like.
And they said no, but
for you.
And I thought to myself, yeah, you guys know I'm not supposed to be arrested anyway. I should never have to be fingerprinted. That's not my calling in life.
Exactly.
So then they put a chain around my waist, and then they put handcuffs on me. And then they said, oh, we won't have to put any ankle cuffs on you. I said, oh, that's nice of you. And so,
Wow.
and then they did all the other booking stuff. And then they led me away to cell. I got to talk to a public defender because I didn't have an attorney at the time. And then I went and talked to they put me in a cell where I was for about an hour and a half. And then after I was there for about an hour and a half, and I was perfectly fine, looking around, trying to see how big it was, and knowing people were praying for me. And
Wow.
so then after about an hour and a half, one of the marshals came in and he said, we're going to have to shackle your ankles. And I thought, okay, what did I just do that I'm more going to escape this prison?
Wow.
So maybe make it more uncomfortable in the walk up to get back to the courtroom.
More humiliating. It's a bigger deal when your feet are shackled. I think it makes a bigger statement, and they're trying to make a point.
Yeah. Well, they messed with the God of heaven in that one, because what happened, they shackled my ankles, and I went back. He locked the two doors and went back out. And I sat down on that bench, and I looked down at that little chain between my ankles. I just started crying, because all of a sudden, God revealed to me how much his love was for me, that he would give his only son to die for me. He went through all that. He went to the cross. He suffered nothing at all like I was, but that chain reminded me that he bore our chains. And the first thing that came to me was Isaiah 53:6, where it says, he was wounded, prophesying about Jesus. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. By the chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we were healed. And I just couldn't stop crying, because I just realized Jesus sacrificed everything for me, and I'm doing so little, and yet, and that's what it reminded. So, I mean, it just overpowered me with God's love, and that he would do that for me. And if I could, I'd tell everybody, go to prison for 3 hours and get you, just so you can experience God's love.
You'll have an encounter with God in a way you never have.
Exactly. That's what happened to me.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. They tried to intimidate, but God was bigger. Yeah. And,
right. Exactly.
And then right after that, I heard God say, Rebecca, you were chosen for this assignment. So, and so it just confirmed that I was chosen. So I have
no question. And they're throwing things at you now. And the charges that you're facing, while they are misdemeanors, they carry significant penalties. I mean, I think you told me, or I heard you say, up to over $200,000 worth of fines, and even prison term for a peaceful entry and exit of the Capitol. Yeah. What are the potential penalties you can pay?
Well, a little over $200,000 if they charge me for everyone that I did, and then also up to a year in prison.
Wow. Wow. Boy, it is hard to believe. And this is why I wanted to tell your story, because I think most people can't believe this can happen in America. They just simply cannot believe that someone who did what you did could have this type of treatment, this type of charges, and this type of penalties if convicted. And of course, you're going to be tried, I'm assuming, in the DC courts. That's not a favorable environment.
No,
Yeah.
it's not the best, but it really doesn't matter because
Doesn't matter.
they're subject to the higher authorities. I got to tell you this. I've been reading this book, The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates. Have you read that?
No.
Heard of that book? It's Brett
No.
Terwella is his last name. And I met him. He was here in Colorado Springs, where I'm from. And he wrote this book on the doctrine of the lesser magistrates. And one of the things I just wanted to share from that, I was born into a Lutheran family, and I always loved Martin Luther as a reformer. I studied him, but I didn't know this about him. He was from Germany, and in the early 1500s, probably 1540, there was a prince. I think his name, I don't know if it was Charles or something like that. I can't remember his exact name, but he was putting down different mandates on the Christians. They couldn't. They had to remain Catholic or whatever it was. I don't know. They couldn't have the freedoms that Martin Luther had fought for. And this city it's Magdeburg, Germany, in the 15th Magdeburg. And this prince or emperor at the time said, you cannot do this. And so what they did was they had a wall around their city, and he was coming at this city. They put a whole siege there, then a wall. And this emperor at that time sieged them for over a year because they would not agree. They said, God is our higher authority. We will not obey you because you're telling us to go against what our God has said, and we will not bow down to that. But if you let us go, we will submit in the things that we agree that our God has said is okay. And they were sieged for a whole year. But after that, the emperor actually gave in to them and gave them what they wanted. And they got their freedom back. So I guess that really stirred me up again because, you know, it may look like there's no justice, but there will eventually be justice. God will get the final say.
You know, and that's what I love about your story is that this isn't about you, and it never has been about you. It's about you're a vehicle for bringing the good news, the gospel, the truth to people, and you're glorifying God in the process. And I think that's why your mission to restore a godly culture is so obvious. It's so obvious within you and the way you're operating. Tell us a little bit. I know your trial's right around the corner. By the time this airs, you'll be probably in the middle of it, and we need to be praying for you. What are ways we can help you? Obviously, we can pray for you. What are other ways that we can help you through this time?
Well, first of all, seek God first so that you can understand what your role is, and so we can have justice, because Proverbs 28 verse 5 says, evil men do not understand justice, but those who crave and seek the Lord understand it fully. So if you want to understand justice, you better seek God and know what he's saying. So that's the first thing. And then do what God's called you to do. But then greater than that, take action and get involved, whether it's praying, whether it's getting involved in your local party, and whatever, because it's got to be a grassroots movement. Trump can do it, but he can't do it by himself if he has an all Democratic Congress. We need people in Congress. We need people that are committed to our country and to covenant, not to their own agenda, but to what our country stands for and godly principles. And then give to my fund if you want, because
there you go. Obviously, this is expensive, and you've got attorneys that are representing you. The average family can't endure this. The average person couldn't possibly cover the legal expenses alone. How can we get in touch and support you as we're led by God?
Okay, well, first of all, my attorneys did say by the end of this, it could be up to $100,000 that I would have just for legal fees. I mean, for the expenses, and my daughter's looking for a place to stay. And even DC, just for staying there 10 days, it could, it's like $200-300 a night almost. It's just horrendous. We're trying to find something maybe a little bit outward, but I think that the other part is, just give to if you go to my site, restoringgodlyculture.com, you will find a donate tab there. Or if you want to go directly to my site, I'm connected with givesendgo.com/Rebecca Lavrenz, my first and last name. givesendgo /Rebecca Lavrenz, and that's spelled REBECCA, and then last name is LAV as in Victor, And you can give there directly. And just pray for me too, that I would give glory to God in this whole thing. That's the thing. And we just raise up a bigger voice to get God's own and share my information with whoever you feel led to. They can already do whatever they want. I don't know. They'll probably pick up something that I said wrong.
No, I think this is amazing. And I think God is going to create confusion on their side. And I pray that he would give you, full exoneration. This is crazy. We're going to celebrate with you. We're going to pray for you. We're going to help support you, and we're going to celebrate with you. And I'll look into some options for housing, because I have a lot of friends in the Washington, D.C. area, actually people that live right near the Capitol, interestingly enough. So we'll try and make those connections too. You never know. We've got time to do it.
Okay.
But Rebecca, listen, we're inspired by you. I'm personally inspired by you, your faith, your courage, your boldness, your focus on what matters most, which is restoring godliness to this nation. Super grateful for you. Thanks for being a guest today. So thankful.
Oh, thank you. It's always good to meet more patriots. Some people say they lost their friends to this situation. I gained friends, multiplied.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yes.
Well, I'm thankful that you're a new friend for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for
God
you.
bless you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.